Hello everyone and a very warm welcome back to my channel. I hope you all are doing great. So in the previous video we discussed about Article 14 of the Indian Constitution, which deals with the right to equality. And as I promised in the previous video, that in this video we'll also touch upon Article 13, which is very important, which doesn't comes under the fundamental right, but it is basically a law, or you can say a provision, which allows the fundamental rights to be amended, and that is a very important provision, and you all need to understand that provision so that you could have a better understanding about how a particular procedure can be amended in the fundamental right. If any of the laws that are passed by the government, if they violates in any form the fundamental rights, then judiciary, that is the apex court, has the power through the judicial review to declare that particular law as void, or you can say null and void. Okay, so we'll very in-depth study we'll have related to that in Article 13, and I would be starting up with that only. So if you are first time you came across this channel, or you are new to this channel, so hello everyone, my name is Aman Onjo, and this channel is Aman Onjo, where we'll be discussing about all the free UPSC preparation topics. We are discussing all the different topics of UPSC, and this is completely free for everyone. You can anytime visit our channel and watch these videos and enjoy the benefit. And all of these are not in any form, they are not superficial, but they are having each and every topic, each and every video that I make, that have in-depth analysis of everything, every topic, and you can even write all those things in your main exams. So if you guys think that it is free, so it would not have quality content, so it's very wrong. You can check it for yourself. You can watch our videos. We have already uploaded many videos related to UPSC topics, and basically currently we are going through GS, and I also said that I'll also go through CSAT part. That would be helpful for you in your, like, if you're preparing for CGL also, then also it is going to be very helpful for you, and I'm soon coming up with a video for that also. I'm preparing upon that. So currently we are just doing GS. I've already completed bilateral and internal security. You can check those videos out, and currently from the previous video onwards, we have started a new module, that is Indian Polity, Constitution and Governance, the most important module with the highest number of questions that are asked and the highest weightages carried by them. So in this video, this is part 2. Of course, if you haven't watched part 1, in which I properly discussed what are fundamental rights, human rights, what is the relation, then we also discussed the first article of our fundamental rights, that is Article 14, equality before law and equal protection of law. You can check that out, and if you check that out, then you can watch this video. So I would recommend you go there first, watch that completely, so that you could get the basic foundation of what we are doing. Okay, so without any further ado, let's begin with this video. So this is part 2, fundamental rights of the Indian Constitution. So in this video, first of all, as I told, that I would be starting up with the new article, that is Article 13, which essentially does not count under the fundamental right, but yes, this is very important relating to the amendability of the fundamental rights. Okay, so we are discussing Article 13 right now, and then we'll move to Article 15. Article 14 we have already discussed. So when I talk about Article 13, so it basically deals with the law which are inconsistent or in derogation to the fundamental rights. Okay, as I told you that if they are not abiding by the fundamental rights, so this article deals with those laws, okay, which are not abiding by the fundamental rights. Okay, so what does this article say is, Article 13(1) states that if there is any kind of pre-constitutional law, you need to note these terms. Pre-constitutional, what does this mean? Before the constitution came into being. If there were already existing laws before constitution came into being, and those laws were earlier considered to be good, but after, you know, introduction of the constitution and henceforth introduction of the fundamental rights, if they violate the fundamental rights in any form, then those laws can be declared as void. VOID, void. Okay, so some also say null and void, you can also say void, both the terms are correct. Okay, so those laws can be declared void to the extent, okay, now note this word, to the extent of their inconsistency. Okay, so if there is a paragraph, say if there are like 4-line law, okay, and if the 2 of the lines are violating the fundamental right, other 2 are not violating the fundamental right, then these particular 2 lines can be declared as void and can be removed, and this can be done through judicial review by Supreme Court. Okay, and there is a doctrine, this is a particular doctrine, okay, we call this as doctrine of severability. Very important term, again you need to understand this, doctrine of severability. Okay, what does this mean? This means that if there is a big rule or law, okay, if there is a big law, okay, and it is not in consistency to our fundamental rights, then Supreme Court can remove those offending portion. Like for example, I already told you there is a 4-line law. 2 of the lines are abiding by the fundamental rights, 2 of the lines are not. So what Supreme Court can do? Supreme Court can remove these 2 offending lines. Okay, these can be removed and this can be declared, these lines can be declared as void. Now this is called as doctrine of severability. Okay, but there are certain exceptions to this particular doctrine. What are the exceptions? Exceptions are that what happens, that sometimes if the law is of say one and a half line, say, okay, and if one line is removed, only this much is left, so it doesn't, it doesn't give any meaning to that law. Okay, so what you have to do is, instead of removing most of the part, if you have, say if you have removed 95% part of a law and only 5% is left, okay, so what you can do is that you can declare this whole law as void or invalid, void, okay, because only this 5% does not have any meaning left. Okay, so you can declare the whole law as void. Okay, this can be done. And another exception to this law is that sometimes what happens is that whatever is left, okay, say I had a 3-line law, one line has been removed, these 2 lines have not been removed, but these 2 lines, because of the removal of this one line, these 2 lines change their meaning. Okay, like earlier whatever they were signifying, now they are not portraying that particular meaning, and their meaning has changed. So in that case also you can declare this whole law as void. Okay, I hope you understand this doctrine. This is very important. Okay, you need to understand this. Okay, so article 13.1, I hope you are clear with that. Now let's now let's move to article 13.2. so what does 13.2 states? In 13.1 we talked about the pre-constitutional law. 13.2 states about the post-constitutional law. After the constitution came into being, the post-constitutional law, if they are in any way in derogation to the fundamental rights, then they can be declared as void by the Supreme Court. Okay, so there is another doctrine which comes under this, that is doctrine of eclipse. I hope you all understand what is an eclipse. Okay, overshadowing. So this law is this doctrine is basically overshadowing. Okay, so if what happens, if there is a, say earlier there was a law, okay, which was good for the society, and it was good in the sense that it doesn't harm anything, but when our constitution came and there were fundamental rights that were introduced in our constitution, and which does not allow this to exist according to the fundamental rights. This law earlier which was good, but now it comes under the category of inconsistency towards fundamental rights. Okay, so what is happening here, after the arrival of fundamental rights, the old law has been overshadowed by the fundamental right. Okay, and hence it is declared as void. So this particular doctrine is what is called as doctrine of eclipse. Okay, that means after the arrival of fundamental rights, this whole law which was earlier good is now declared as it's now declared as void, and it is overshadowed by fundamental right. Now say for example in future, now what happens, that this fundamental right has been removed or it has been amended. Okay, so if it has been removed, so now this particular fundamental right which led to the overshadowing of this law, if it itself doesn't exist, then this law would now again begin to exist. Okay, now this fundamental right is no more there, no more overshadowing, so it would come into being again, and this can be declared again as valid law. Okay, sorry, this can again be declared as a valid law. Okay, so you can say that uh, during the time when this fundamental right overshadowed this law went into a dormant stage. Okay, and when this fundamental right has now been removed, so it came back again into the active mode. So this is what is doctrine of eclipse. Okay, both of these doctrines are important and you need to know the basic concept behind them. Okay, so I hope that article 13.2 is also clear to you. Then there is article 13.3. There is article 13.3 also. So what does article 13.3 says? Article 13.3 says that if there is any law, okay, or if this law is also including ordinance, we'll discuss ordinance also in a great detail, but for now, for your understanding, you can know that this is a law which is not passed by the parliament, but instead it is given up by the president. This law is, it is a ordinance, it is a power to the president that he or she can give ordinance, and this is a law which is not passed by the parliament, but it is passed by the president only, and it is also enforceable. Okay, but it needs after 6 months there needs to be again, this law needs to be passed in the parliament. If it gets passed in the parliament, well and good, and if it doesn't, so this would cease to exist. Okay, so a summary for what is ordinance for your understanding. So law and ordinance, or a bylaw. What is a bylaw? Bylaw is basically a kind of a sub law. Okay, or any kind of rule, regulation, or any kind of, say, notifications. Okay, I would refrain from writing all the words here because it gets very difficult, so just focus on my voice more and keep on preparing your notes. As I've told you in all the videos, that consider it more of an auditory lecture. I'm just writing the keywords here so that you guys can grab the concept. So if there are any kind of bylaws, rules, regulations, notifications, ordinances, or laws, okay, which are in any form, they are or even the customs are there. Okay, so if all of them in any form are being inconsistent with respect to the fundamental rights of our constitution, then all of them can be declared as void by the Supreme Court through the procedure of judicial review. Okay. Okay, so we have these 3 articles under article 13, and this is a very important article, but there is another issue that I would like to discuss. That is you can say there has been many instances when this amendability of fundamental rights is questioned by the by the citizens in the Supreme Court. Okay, so I'll discuss some of the instances which are important here. Okay, I'll give you a timeline for that. So we'll discussing amendability of fundamental laws, fundamental rules. Okay, so as you know that there was a first ever amendment act that was passed in the parliament was in 1951, year after the constitution came into being. Okay, and this was related to the reservations in jobs and reservations in jobs and educational institutes. Just keep on writing, guys. Institutions for SC and ST. Okay, so this law has this amendment act has been passed, which is related to the reservation in jobs and educational institutions for SC and ST people. Okay, so Of course, I already told you that it is a form of positive discrimination. In the previous video, I discussed this part. So, this was the first Amendment Act that was ever passed after the Constitution came into being. Then, after this Amendment Act was passed, it is related to our fundamental rights issue, of course. Okay, so there are many of the citizens, those who went to the Supreme Court and they questioned this particular you can say aspect, that whether the fundamental rights are amendable or not. Okay, so there were many of the cases. First one was Sajjan Singh case. Okay, so I'm just writing the names here and I'm going to explain you what happened in them, what were the verdicts. You can just write them down. SINGH, Sajjan Singh case, SINGH it is. Okay, so in this case was basically in 1965. So what does this case stated? In this case there were 9 judges. Okay, there was a constitutional bench of 9 judges that was formed. Okay, and when this particular question was raised, then the verdict of the Supreme Court came that yes, the fundamental rights can be amended. Okay, now again the second case came again in the Gorakhnath case, Gorakhnath, Gorakhnath case. So this was in 1967. Okay, so in this case what happened was that again this question was raised and the verdict of the Supreme Court was opposing the verdict of the previous Sajjan Singh case. And I just missed out one more. There was a case which was even before Sajjan Singh case. So I'll just change this. First case that came even before Sajjan Singh case was the Shakari, Shakari, Shakari Prasad case. And this case was in 1952, a year after the first Amendability Act was passed. Okay, so here also in the first case when Supreme Court was asked, so it was said that yes, the fundamental rights can be amended. Then second one was Sajjan Singh, as I already told, Sajjan Singh case. Just add this first one. Okay, my bad, I just missed that one. 1965. Okay, then there was a third case which I told you right now, that is Gorakhnath case. Gorakhnath case, that was in 1967, which again said that in which the Supreme Court again said that yes, they can be amended. So you can say that in all of these 3 cases Supreme Court said that yes, the fundamental rights can be amended. But in these 2 cases Supreme Court said so, but in this third case Supreme Court just refused to the positive. In these 2 they said yes, but in this particular verdict they said no, the fundamental rights cannot be amended. So it was completely opposite to the verdicts which are given by the Supreme Court in these 2 cases. Okay, so you can say that the verdict has been it has been completely opposite to what it was before. Okay, then in response to this Gorakhnath case, what the parliament did, that in parliament in 1971 passed a law, okay, which said they added article 13(4), which said that nothing under article 13 applies to any amendment made under article 365. So amendments are done through article 368. Okay, I hope you know this. If you don't, so just note this down. Article 368 is used for amending the constitution. Okay, so they said that article 13 does not apply to article 368. That means that amendability, article 13, which refrains which refrains parliament from amending, is not applied. Okay, so they said that no, it is not applicable and parliament is completely free to amend the fundamental rights also. Okay, then again this particular verdict was challenged. Fourth case, this is known as watershed in the legal history and a very, very important judgment which came by the Supreme Court. This one was called as Keshanand Bharti case. I'm writing the spelling, just note the spelling down. K E S A U A N D A. Just note the spellings, okay? However you pronounce it, just see to it, okay? Keshananda Bharti case. Okay, so this was in the year 1973. Okay, so 2 years after that, parliamentary 13-4 was passed. Okay, so it was said that then in Keshanand Bharti case, this question again raised that does Parliament have the power to amend the constitution? Then there was a 11 judges constitutional bench that was there. Okay, and the majority came, two majorities came from 7-6, 7-6. So you can say that only one member, it was a game of only one member that the majority was proven. Okay, so this one member was Justice Khanna, and he basically was, it's because of him that this right is not misused now. So in one of the judgment, he said that yes, the Parliament has the right. Yes, the Parliament has the right to amend the fundamental right, but said the Parliament does not have, you can say, Parliament have certain restrictions. Okay, so they cannot just do anything, any amendments that they want. Okay, that cannot be done, and there needs to be some reasonable restrictions on their powers also. So you can say that this is a balance that has been struck. That means that yes, Parliament can amend the fundamental rights, but at the same time there are certain restrictions on them and the power cannot be misused. Okay, so this is a watershed judgment, Keshanand Bharti case, and this was very important. Then in response to this from Parliament, there was a kind of fight going on literally. Okay, then in the Parliament, from the Parliament in 1976, there was another amendability act that was called as 42nd Amendability Act, and it said that no, there is no restriction on the Parliament. And also in the previous Keshanand Bharti case, it was said that the restriction are dependent upon the basic structure of the constitution. Okay, so basic structure of the constitution is going to determine how much restrictions would be there on the Parliament. Okay, so in this particular 42nd Amendment Act, Parliament said that no, we are completely free to make any kind of fundamental rights. There is no basic structure concept, there is no concept of the basic structure of constitution that exists, and we are completely free, there are no restriction to us. Then again Supreme Court passed another one, and finally this was the last one in 1980, and after that this kind of a fight that was going on, it stopped. In 1918, Supreme Court, in a case that was known as Mini Mininvare, V-A-R-E, Mininvare Mills case. Okay, so this was a case where this fight actually stopped, and under this case Supreme Court said that yes, Parliament can amend the fundamental rights, but with a reasonable restriction. There are restrictions on them. Secondly, they said that there exists a basic structure and the restriction is going to be directly proportional to that basic structure. Okay, and the third, that the Supreme Court has the power to review their amendability, and it is a subject to judicial review. Okay, so you can say that after that it was not again, there were no law which were passed by Parliament against, in order to counteract this judgment, and executives and Parliament accepted it, and till today it is like that only. Okay, so this is a very important timeline, you should make this, and you should know that. Okay, so this is all that happened. Okay, so I had nearly 30 minutes discussion on Article 13 in depth completely, and I don't think that anything other than this would be asked in relation to Article 13. So I hope it is crystal clear to you. If there are any doubts, you are always free. The comment box is open for all of you. Just don't spread hate, have positivity, and you can of course ask any of your doubts, and I'll try my best to solve them up, and I'll be happy to help. So now I hope that Article 13 is clear. Now moving on to Article 14, we already discussed. So now I have to start up with Article number 15. Okay, that is again a very important article. All the articles are important under fundamental rights, and I think the whole of this module is important. I cannot particularly specify you that this is the most important, because everything is nearly important to each other. So now let us start up with the new article, that is Article 15. So when we talk about Article 15, so in this, basically what this article states, that there is a prohibition on discrimination on the grounds of religion, caste, sex, place of birth, and race. Okay, so if there is any discrimination on any of these things, so that is strictly prohibited. Okay, so this is what Article 15 states in simple terms. Okay, now we have various articles under Article 15. We have Article 15(1)(a), which states that it is for the state, that state shall not discriminate, okay, on the basis of religion, caste, sex, place of birth, or race. Okay, then we have Article number 15(2), and what does Article 15(2) states? It states that the citizen, any of the citizen, cannot be discriminated on the basis of religion, caste, sex, place of birth, race, for any place of public utility, like wells, ghats, public entertainment, restaurants, hotels. Okay, while accessing any of them, nobody shall be discriminated. Okay, then we have Article 15(3), okay, which states that there can be certain special provisions, for women and children, okay. So this is what Article 15(3) says. Then we have Article number 15(4). Okay, so it basically deals with the special provisions again for the socially and educationally backward. Okay, so you have to write this words, socially and educationally backwards. Sometime in order to confuse you, UPSC may write socially and economically, and most of the people have this misconception that reservation is for social as well as economic basis. No, it is not at all economic, it's for social and educational backwardness. Okay, so this misconception needs to go away. As we are studying for UPSC, we need to burst all of these myths, and we need to know the reality. Okay, so it is for socially and educationally backward classes, and basically through First Amendment Act, as we discussed, it is for SC and ST people. OBC is not included in 15(4). Then we have another article, that is 15(5), which states that there is reservation. And note one more thing here, it talks about the special provisions, okay, that may or may not include reservation. So you can say that it broadly does not include reservation, but the other special provisions. And whereas the properly for the sake of reservation, it is provided through Article 15(5) for SC, ST and OBC, other backward classes. Okay, so there is a very important case that needs to be discussed here. Okay, so that is known as that was a case that was called as Indira, Indira, Indira Swani case. Very important case needs to be discussed here relating to the OBC. So there was a Mandal committee that was constituted under this particular case. Mandal committee was introduced, and this committee said that the state can make certain special provisions for the backward classes, which has been defined as other backward classes. So under OBC there were many of the backward classes that were like around 3,500 something backward classes were identified, and it suggested that there should be a reservation for them, and it should not exceed 50%. And the concept of creamy layer also came from a Mandal Commission only. So what did state accepted then afterwards, that it gives 27% reservation to OBC, and the concept of creamy layer was established, okay, and it was accepted by the state as well. So Indira Swani case is important, okay. This is a reference to OBC reservation. Then we have a very new article under Article 15 itself, that was Article 15(6) that was introduced very recently, which is related to EWS reservation, okay. So EWS reservation is basically for the economically weaker sections, okay, economically weaker sections, okay. And you need to note one thing here, that it is not for SC, ST and OBC, okay. It is only for the economically weaker sections of general category, okay. This is something you need to note. It is not for everyone, it is only for the economically weaker sections of the general category, and it has been introduced, but this has been challenged in the Supreme Court, Apex Court, and there the judgment is yet to come, and let's see that how it goes, okay. So this is the 15(6) article. Currently, if you have to explain this, then you have to include this, because still there has not been any judgment for the acceptance or removal of this particular article. So currently we have to include it, and then accordingly afterwards we'll see that what would be the verdict and would it be included or not, okay. So this is all about Article 15, okay. Now as an analysis, Article 15 is available only for citizens of India, it is not for foreigners, okay. There are many articles who are not for foreigners, they are only and only for Indian citizens, okay. Article 14 is for foreigners also, right to equality, okay, but of course exceptions are there. And there are many other articles that are not for foreigners but are for Indians, and there are some articles that are for foreigners as well as Indians, okay. So Indira Swani case is another thing that I discussed, okay. So this is something you need to know about article number 15. So we have completed Article 15. Now let's start with another article, that is known as Article 16. Article 16, okay. So it talks about the equality in opportunity of public employment, okay. So there should be an equality in opportunity of public employment. So we have Article 16(1), which states that there should be an equality in opportunities of opportunities of public employment. Public means government sectors, okay. This is what 16(1) states. Then we have 16(2). Article 16(2), it states that no citizen on the grounds of religion, again all of those terms, religion, race, caste, sex, place of birth, no citizen can be ineligible, okay, on the basis of this. That means they cannot be discriminated, but the state can establish the eligibility criteria based on the specific qualifications. Okay, so there are certain posts which need certain specific qualifications or skill sets. So state can of course introduce that. Other than this, there cannot be any other grounds for discrimination or for rejection of any kind of opportunity of public employment. Okay, so this was article 16.2. now let's see article 16.3. so when I talk about article 16.3, so article 16.3 states that residence can be a criteria, okay, for providing public employment, okay, based on residence, that can be there, but there needs to be a prerequisite of any historical aspect. If this has been if there are certain historical aspects due to which that this has been practiced, so then only it is accepted, otherwise on the basis of residence it's not. So now we have now we have article 16.4. okay, so what does article 16.4 states? It states that the reservations should be there in jobs for favoring the unprivileged classes, backward classes. Okay, so this is under article 16.4. now we have article number 16.5. okay, article 16.5 states that the religion can only be the grounds for public employment if the posts are in the region, you can say religious institute. okay, so there are many institute for which are religious in nature. so religious institutes, in the religious institute there can be some kind of eligibility criteria based on religion, otherwise not. okay, and that too it should be run by the government. Of course we are talking about public, right? so it should be run by the government, and then the religion could be a ground. okay, and there was another article that were added subsequently, which is under article, just a sec. okay, so it is article 16. like we have discussed article 16.4 which deals with the reservation. so under article 16.4 there are article 16.4a that was subsequently added, and it said that the reservation in promotion. okay, that means there should be a reserved seats for promoting, for the purpose of promotion also. okay, and then there is another article that is 16.4b. okay, 16.4b, which states that it basically tells the procedure of filling the vacated seats and unfilled vacant seats, how they are to be filled for the reserved categories. It suggests that procedure. so this was things about article number 14. So the next article, that is article number 17, 18 and onwards, we'll be discussing in the next video. I'm going to stop this video right here, and I hope to see you again in the next video where we'll be continuing with this discussion. I hope you understood this very well, and if you did, then don't forget to subscribe to our channel currently. Just go right now and hit that bell icon and share it with the friends who need it, who want support relating to UPSC, and if they cannot spend money, can't join coaching, so this is the best place to be. So recommend this channel to them, and if you liked it, just leave a like. So thank you so much guys, take care and stay safe. Bye.